All right, welcome back, everybody. We're trying another Monday Night Live. Hopefully, this stuff works out. First off, I'm putting. Tell me if you can hear me. And did I just cut out, or can you still hear me? What's up, Lupin? Yeah, I think we're gonna have some issues again. I'm pretty sure. Just for everything I'm trying to do, I don't think this little computer's got the power to pull off what I need. So we'll try to run this thing as good as we can. If it dogs out, once again, I apologize. Um, man, I'm trying. All right, so we're gonna go ahead and get on with this. I know we got Lizzie, Lupin's here, Kim is here, Oddities is here. There's at least 3, 4 of us here. So we're just gonna go ahead and move on and try to get going. Hang with me. We do run some high risk tonight of this thing dropping out again and dealing with the same crap we dealt with last week. But until I can get stronger stuff, that's what we're going to deal with. So hopefully everybody, and I think most of you guys have this part already done. And a lot of you guys sent me progress pictures. Thank you so much for sending those. Because once all this is done, I'm going to throw together a video and highlight all your guys' work throughout this class. I thought it'd be a fun thing to do. So, right on. First thing I'm going to do, if you guys haven't done already, my balloon's kind of already deflated, but I'm going to go ahead and pop. I'm going to pull this balloon out of here and get it out of the way. Also, what you didn't say before, if you guys have a Lazy Susan or something, it would be great to grab it right now. Or some tin foil or something. That way, when we go to clay this, we can put it down and you can shift this thing around, maybe grabbing the edges of the tin foil or whatever to make turns on it. So, that's right. Well, I hear size doesn't matter, but no, honestly, size shouldn't really matter on this. This one's a little small. I could have made it bigger, but I failed to do so. But a lot of mine that I made in the past weren't, like I said, weren't very big. And if you did that right, let's see if we can, that inside should be pretty clean. And we're probably frozen up from my end. That's what it looks like. We'll see how this goes. And it looks like I'm back again. Okay, right on. But in comparison, where are you at? The one I put together this time, was about the same size as this one I already did. By the time I put clay on that thing, it's going to be a little bit bigger. Correct. Mine's good for a young kid, a young little toddler. And that's kind of how I was doing those things originally when I first thought about doing these. I'm going to get now, first thing we're going to do before we get into clay is we're going to cut this down the size. I'm probably going to take about an inch off of here. Let me see here. Yeah, I'm probably going to take about an inch off the top all the way around. If you guys got, depending on what size, whatever you made, Like this thing right here, this fits fairly good for what I want to take off. So I'm probably going to just put this on the top and trace this around and give me a line. And then I'll cut that line off to get my opening. You can cut these things if you guys got, and I didn't say this, if you guys got a Dremel tool is going to work great for this. If not, razor blade, well, I've got a razor knife, and I'm getting ready to put a fresh blade in this, because this should be, depending on how many layers you put on, this can be a pain in the butt to cut through. A good serrated knife, like a steak knife type situation, that works pretty well too for cutting through this stuff. My camera angle is weird because I want to be able to shoot them so you guys can see the face when I put it into this thing. And if I go the other direction, it's all a mess over there. And I don't want you to see the mess. So you're going to have to excuse my arm reaching through here to grab clay and whatnot and other stuff. I've never had problems looping when I taped it, causing it to pop. The only thing I've had that's caused my balloons to really pop is heat or being out in the sun. Mr. Joker, what's up? Those are the only times I've really had problems with them popping. Why would I hide? Let me see. And there we go again. I don't know if you guys can hear me, but I can see that my cameras have dropped out. Yeah, so it looks like I'm back now again. So possibly my camera's freeze for you guys. If that's the case, I just know when I watch over here, I can see that my screen goes blank, and I know we're having problems. I just don't know how it's affecting you guys. Like right now, I'm looking over there, and the cameras are blank, and they're trying to spool up. What I don't know is if you can hear me while I'm talking. Oh, I'm going to make some adjustments. Oh, well, it'll be okay, I think. Maybe not. I think I want to go with the top line. And hopefully I'm just not cutting too much out. I marked this twice, and I'm going to go with the original mark because it looked like it was going to give me the best top. So that's what I'm going to go with. All right, so first thing, here we go. We got our balloon out of there. Now we're going to cut the top off. Once we get our top cut out, we'll move on to playing with some clay. And this should go fairly quick tonight, unless you guys got some questions. And I had someone told me that I could start a Discord and get everybody to show up on Discord along with this, and then you guys would like actually be able to talk and ask questions through your mics. So I want to look into that further and see what it's going to take, because that would be great if you guys could just ask questions versus having to type them out. But I'm also afraid, in order to run that, to run this live stream and everything else, I'm definitely going to have some stronger equipment. I'll get it figured out one way or another. The biggest problem right now is just trying to have, two camera angles here. Cool. I'll have to go check out your skin mask and see how that looks. All right. Yeehaw. Now I can get in here. I got a couple more pieces of tape in here I want to get out. But I don't know if you can see. See, I layered that up pretty thick. I mean, I think overall this thing probably had 6 or 7 layers on it. And that's almost 1/4 of an inch thick. So this base is pretty strong. What's up, Keith? I was cutting off the top. See, I had a partial ball, and now I don't. Now I have an open spot to the top of this, to make our open spot for the trick or treat basket. And then the other reason, come on, cameras, catch up. There we go. And then the best reason for using the balloons is look how smooth. I mean, if you guys pulled your balloon out and got that cut apart, you should be able to see the inside. The inside is crazy smooth, right? That's why I started doing that more of my standard pumpkins too, instead of doing the Walmart sacks, because that's such a smooth inside. So here we are. Is everybody that's building along, do you guys got your tops cut off? I'll give you a moment. As soon as you get your tops cut off, we will start playing with some clay. Stupid cameras. Yeah, the little camera that could. It's not really the cameras, man. It's there it goes again. It is the it's my computer. I'm having difficulties with this other camera. We may have to do this completely different. Gosh darn it. Let's try this again. Wow, it's taking forever. Allow. Let's enter. We're going to mute this mic real quick, or we're going to have some horrible feedback. Yeah. All right, that just isn't going to work. Gosh dang it. So let me move this camera around. Woo! All right, can everybody see this and can everybody hear this? Yes, no, no, yes. Let me know before I move on. And I don't need this to be in my way anymore. Okay, yes and yes. Thank you, Lupin. Let's back this up just a tad bit. We'll try to keep this where you guys can see what's happening. Sorry, I'm just looking for my other camera had a better angle, and I'm just trying to keep this angle for you guys. So let's get going. You can see and hear me. Just logged in. Thanks, Linda. I'm not going to be able to do two cameras. That just isn't going to happen tonight. That sucks. Oh well. Okay, so here we are. If everybody's got their top cut and their insides pulled out, we are going to move on and get some clay going on. First thing I'm going to do though is I'm going to use this little Lazy Susan, and I don't want my pumpkin sticking to it. So I'm going to put down a little foil. I used to have this awesome piece of wax that I had gotten from melting a whole bunch of candles down a big giant pot and then pulled it out of the bottom. And then this big piece of wax you set on this, and it was great because nothing would stick to it. All right. Let's see where we at. I am so unprepared tonight. It's not even funny. It's been a day. It's been a wild day. Let's get this mic undone. I gotta get some stuff out of the way now. So I'm not using this other mic. Goodbye to that. You know what? Maybe after like the 4th or 5th Monday Night Live, I might have this crap down. And we won't have problems like this. That'd be friggin' awesome. And where's my mache paste? The type of clay we're using, Kim, is this is a paper clay, paper mache clay. This is a toilet paper recipe that I've got on my channel. Also, if you went to ultimatepapermache.com, you could use her recipe as well. There's other recipes out there that have like the fiber insulation stuff. That would work, but not really for this because it's hard to get detail on it. So as long as you're using a toilet paper style clay for this, as far as mache clay, that's your best bet. And before we get layering this clay on here, I'm going to go ahead and brush on some mache paste all over the outside of this little basket. That's just going to help. It's going to help this paper clay to adhere a little bit better and stick to this a little bit better. This just is going to make it a little bit more tacky. Man, it's been forever. I was looking back at videos. It's been 6 years or better since I've made any of these. It's been a long time. And if I pull this thing out of the camera focus, just let me know, because this camera is not in the best spot. We're winging it. The original thing I was going to do isn't working, so we're winging it. And hopefully you guys got on hand. I got a bowl of water. Water is always good for cleaning your hands off in the middle of this. It's also good for, I dip my spoon. And when I talk about a spoon, once again, we're talking about the back of this spoon. I'll dip this in water to smooth out and change some of my edges. Also, we're going to use, here's our little tiny hot glue stick. We're going to use this with some water to make our stuff. How did I cut the top off, or what did I use? Linda, okay, so you're just here. You got a Dremel tool, that would be your fastest and easiest way to cut the top off. Or a serrated steak knife, but I used this is a carpenter's blade and a razor blade, and I put a fresh blade into it and cut it that way. The thicker this is, and mine's pretty thick, the thicker this is, the harder it is to cut. So you just got to kind of be careful. You can cut your hand real easy. I've done it before. But if you got a Dremel tool, that's the easiest way to do it, especially if you got one of those little round cutting discs to put into it. You can just buzz right around that. And then for mine also too, since you're just joining us, where did that go? I had this little bucket here, and it was kind of the perfect size for me to put down on top to outline an opening to cut off, so it kind of actually worked out nice. I didn't plan it that way. It just happened to be how much air I put in that balloon and what I did, and having this thing laying around was just the perfect size. So you lost all your air and all your pumpkins overnight the first night? That's crazy. Yeah, charismatic. Charismatic. Yes, that's probably 6 to 7 layers, maybe even 8. I don't know. Tuesday night when I got down here, I just got to listening to stuff and put layers on, and then the next night I got to listen to more stuff and put layers on. So I almost kind of kept track of the layers I was putting on. But it's a good 6 to 7 layers, I guess. Or I could say it's 3 layers, because I could consider one night a layer and the next night a layer and the third night a layer. So Robin, you didn't get any of your all of your pump, all of your, golly, I can't even talk. All your balloons lost air. I wonder what happened. Did you did you pull those all the way down, or did you do the whole ball? I mean, you could have wrapped the whole ball as a ball, and it shouldn't have popped. Um, I'm perplexed on that one. I don't know how you lost your air. Yeah, that's true too, Lupin. If every one of them lost air, it could have been a brand of balloon. Generally, the only times I have problems with those, like I said, is if I had set them outside in the sun and the sun beat down on them, and then like then they would pop, and I would have problems with them. All right, let's get some clay. Let's get some clay happening because this really isn't going to take a whole lot of time. I just made a fresh batch of clay today, not too long ago. It is it's not super stiff. It's a little wet, but it's not overly soggy. I mean, it does get, you can see it does leave a residue on my hand. That's what I'm used to working with though. Mo, what did I put on before? Okay, so all we've done so far is we had a balloon, aired up the balloon, and then this is newsprint, and this is just layers of mache. And then right now, what I put on this was my paper mache paste, and my paper mache paste is um, Titebond 2 wood glue and water mixed up, and it's like a 2-to-1 ratio or a 3-to-1 ratio. More glue than there is water. So anyway, all right, we're going to slap this clay just straight on. And yeah, it's pretty thick, and I don't care. It'll dry out and it'll work. And actually, the kind of the thicker it is, the better it is for making my face and stuff. You could probably go, let's go a little bit thinner than that. Let's move this down a little bit more. Well, I'm moving our camera too. Sorry, fellas. Hopefully you don't get sick. Yeah, biscuits. Yes, Robin, don't be deterred, because once you get some that wind up holding the air for you, these are a fun little project, and you'll enjoy it, I'm sure. So basically, I'm just adding more to it there, and you can just blend that right in. To what you had. This is squashing out over the top, and that's going to be okay for now, because actually we're going to want a little bit over the top whenever we do this, so we can get these little top humps on them. I really probably could have done that a little bit thinner. Let's raise this up so you guys can see what I'm doing. And you guys don't have to put it on as thick as I am. My original pumpkins weren't this thick. I'm just haphazardly going at it. Maybe I should go a little bit thinner because I was pretty happy with the overall shape of my pumpkin a minute ago. And now I'm kind of losing that shape a little bit because my clay is pretty thick. Okay, right now, real quick, I'm just gonna smooth kind of some of the lumps out of this. This isn't super necessary at this point, but it is something I do. I'm gonna try to get all the lines from between the clays that I put on to disappear. And I'm going to try to make it a little more uniform. Now, I don't know if you guys noticed that, like, I just pressed down and that really kind of grabbed that clay and was getting ready to pull it and pull it pretty hard. It'll really grab sometimes. I mean, you can manipulate and you can push your clay around quite a bit. If you have a pretty decent light touch and your spoon is wet, that's the trick. If your spoon is dry, it's going to grab this clay and tear at it and do all this weird stuff. But as long as the spoon is pretty well wet, you have an easier time manipulating the clay and moving it around. All right. So we got clay all the way around it. It's nice and smooth. We just spent all that time, and I'm just going to take it and smash it straight down onto my deal here. And what that does is that's going to make the bottom of my trick-or-treat basket flat like this, and will allow me to work all the way around. I noticed mine, Robin, mine lost a little bit of air. Deflated a little bit after the second night, but I already had enough. After that first night had dried up, my outer layer was pretty well good enough that that wasn't an issue. Man, I don't like this shape. I'm afraid this one's going to look odd too. The last one I did was a bigger one, and I wasn't happy with the way it looked. I need to set that on something a little bit higher. What do I got? I need to raise that up. Am I going to be able to do that? Maybe not. See, what I would do right now to allow my arm to get down lower if I wasn't filming is I would drag this to the edge of my work table where I could really get down with my arm under here. What I'm doing right now is just trying to even my shape up just a little bit. See, that looks weird. I made one of these. I made a video for one of these a long time ago, and I hate it. That particular pumpkin, I hate that pumpkin more than any one of these ones I've ever made. And I think it's something about the shape. I don't know. Like, I like this little shape of the other one better because this one's already like this one's actually quite a bit bigger. It doesn't look like it on here, but this is actually quite a bit bigger than this one. Our weather went crazy. It got super cold last night and then started spitting some ice and a little bit of snow out just south of us. They're really getting, feel bad for them. Just south of us, they're going to get a whole lot of ice, and that's going to be a bad situation for a lot of those folks. No ghost pumpkin, just a normal pumpkin. All right, so now we're going to take, this is a cool little trick, and you can use this on any of your paper mache pumpkins, even if you're making bigger ones and you just use the standard size, the bigger uh, glue stick. But this makes putting ridges in, your pumpkin ridges in, super easy. So hopefully this shows up. Can you see that? That's really hard to see. Where my finger's at down here, I'm going to push that way down in at the bottom, right? And then I'm just pushing this straight into the clay. Smashing that in, then I'll drag it out. And that's going to make the beginning of our ridge or pumpkin. So I'm going to try to come straight across here on the other side. See if I can match that up. Now we'll come back in here and clean these edges up a little bit more if we need to. But this gets us a good starting point. And since I put so much clay on this, I can really smash that in there. I mean, can you see? Well, that's almost below the line of the clay because I had enough clay in there that I can really smash that in there. So that gets us a start on a pumpkin ridge, which is great. This one I think I can make a little bit deeper, so I'm going to hit it again. And now I'm going to kind of divide the pumpkin in half from, I got a ridge here and a ridge here. So I'm going to try to eyeball center in between those and give us another ridge going up. Well, this is such an easy little kind of hack or whatever to start sculpting these ridges. Doing the same thing, I'll lay that across. I'm pretty close. But I'm not perfect. Eyeball that, put this in. And now basically what I'm going to do is go around. We got kind of these big, they're a wide section from here to here. And I'm basically just going to cut these in half all the way around. And that's really all the ridging that I'm going to do. Yeah, man, ice is terrible. No, this is a different way. The eyes aren't cut out yet. We're going to do that. We're going to cut the eyes and mouth out after this. And we're in this technique, we're not even cutting them all the way out. We're just going to scrape and move clay around. If you're making a big pumpkin and doing this method, you kind of do the same way, and you would scrape the eyes out like we're going to do with this. And then once everything dried out, you would come back in and cut the eyes and mouth out. But this gives you a way where you can basically form your pumpkin, look at your pumpkin, kind of find that best, you know, what everybody does when you buy a pumpkin. You look and you find that best side before you go carving a face into it, and then you work off of that area, right? Yep, correct, Keith. We won't ever cut the mouth and eyes out of this so the candy won't fall out. And if you wanted your pumpkin to have more ridges, I mean, you could come in here and, do it one more time if you had enough space, or you thought, you had enough space, just depending on what you have going on. But this is absolutely one of the easiest ways to start pumpkin ridging. Yeah, I was a little off. Hopefully I can find a good spot for a face here in a minute, and I think maybe I found it. I'm not sure. So as you can see, like this one's pretty little, and this one's wider. Um, so I went a little too fast. I'm not completely, even with my stuff, but I think I can make it work. I could probably even split that one if I wanted to, but I'm not going to. I'm just going to make it work. Just going to make it work. Looping, that depends on you. I mean, a lot of the times I like mine symmetrical, and especially if you're doing a face on it, that can really help out. But like I just said, I'm not even on this particular one. I kind of jacked it up a little bit, but I'm gonna make it work. But I've got to prop this thing up because I'm going to start now. If you look, we get up here real close, we can see that the edge right here is pretty harsh still right here. So we're going to work on kind of rolling this back and getting rid of that harsh edge so it's smoother. It's more of a gentle roll, and that's the next thing we're going to do. That's where my spoon's going to come in handy for that. But I need to get this up a little bit so I got a little bit easier way to work with. So bear with me. I got to get this thing off the table some. All right, now you guys can't see anything. Let's see if we can get you up here. All right, so I threw this little lazy Susan on top of a paint can that I had. The only reason I did that is that's going to allow me to, your camera angle is going to be weird. That's going to allow, my hands are free down here and I can start way down here and start bringing my stuff up. Just giving me more freedom to work. So I'm going to start kind of blending these in. And I'm going to have to add some more clay to the tops of some of these, the very tops, so they don't take on a weird shape. But we'll work on that shortly. So right now, it's hard. Let me see if I can get right in front of the camera. So at the moment, I'm just coming inside here, and then I'm dragging my spoon back into it. So I'm basically pushing that ridge back in this direction to the pumpkin. So that gets us this nice little smooth edge, and it looks more like a natural pumpkin, right? So we're going to go all the way around. I'm going to do this edge, it's going to come this way. I'm going to get to this edge, I'm going to take that one that way, you know, opposite on each one, and work myself all the way around until we get every edge to be more like this, where we don't have a harsh edge, we just got these smooth edges. Yes, a dehumidifier will actually help out tremendously on mache drying out, if that's what you guys are talking about. Like, oh, you guys are going so fast. It's awesome, but I can't keep up. Okay. Sorry, it's quiet there, guys. I was trying to read some of that chat that was coming through. If I missed your chat, don't be afraid to put it up there again, or your question, and I'll see if I can pay attention and get to it. This is where, like they were talking about, if I could get this Discord thing to work where you guys could talk, I could actually hear what you have to say while I'm working. See, and sometimes I'll start from the bottom like this, and I'm working my way up. But what I'm doing is I'm like, it's hard to explain. I'm putting some pressure towards the inside as I'm rolling up, and I'm trying to push. I don't know if the camera's not really picking it up, but I'm basically pushing the clay this direction by applying pressure in that direction, and then I can come back in like this and roll that further into this pumpkin shape here. Listen to me talking earlier about how fast this is going to be and easy, but it's still going to take time to make all these shapes right. I could carry, but I never have. Monster Misfits, what's up? It's going to be interesting. This one I didn't get enough clay on the top side, so I'm really going to add some more to this one here in a little bit. It's going to be fun feathering that back in, but you guys will get a chance to see me play with that. And I apologize if my arm is getting in the way of your visual. Vic is in the house. I don't know. All you guys talk amongst yourselves. I don't know if you guys know who Vic is. You should if you know who Keith is. But Vic has a YouTube channel, Monster Misfits. He's always making some pretty cool stuff over there too. Him and Keith both make some pretty sweet stuff. If I say so myself. Generally not mache related, but they do make some cool stuff. I don't know if I can get this. So I don't know if you can tell. Probably not. But as I'm smashing this stuff in, the center in here actually gets a little bit lower and I'm building up on the outside. This camera's not really picking that up. Once you're really moving that stuff over, then you're going to just kind of manipulate it again up and down to smooth all that in and make it be uniform. Because the thing with paper clay is you don't really sculpt with it like you do a polymer clay or something out. You're not really cutting a lot out. I mean, there is some you are cutting out, but you're moving it more than you are sculpting and taking away. And it takes a little bit to get used to. But once you get used to the way it reacts and moves, you can do some cool stuff with it. Yeah, see, Vic's pulling a pumpkin. So he likely sculpted one, made a nice mold, and sitting back, dropping some resin or foam in and drinking a beer and waiting for it to harden up. I almost just pulled this whole thing off. I wasn't even paying attention. I moved this thing close to me so many times that I almost pulled it right off the can. That would have been a mess. We almost wound up with trick or treat basket on the floor. And on the bottom side here, I don't know if you guys can see, but when I'm tucking my spoon way down in here deep, and then when I'm getting in there, I'm putting pressure to the inside and pulling up to I'm trying to narrow right from between here and here. I'm trying to make that more narrow, like a natural pumpkin does, right? As it comes down, it narrows down and widens out in the middle and narrows back up the top. So I'm constantly trying to pay attention to that stuff, make sure we're kind of keeping those shapes um, as close to how a pumpkin grows as we can. When I first started doing these, I used to basically just dig in a line with a spoon and then spend tons of time working this over for the shape, but that little trick with the glue stick saves a lot of time. Vic only drinks Tutti Frutti, huh? Gosh dang. Okay, Linda, as far as getting the bottom flattened out here, when we started this whole thing, I flipped it up over on its top and I started on the bottom and I covered the bottom side with clay first. So basically, I covered this whole armature except for the hole in the top. I wrapped this whole thing up with clay, a nice, pretty big layer of clay, and then I just flipped it over. The clay is wet, and then just smashed it right down on top of this, and just let that flatten it out. That's how I do all my pumpkins anymore. I don't waste. There's a lot of people who they like mache the bottom half with their clay and they let that dry and they'll wait a couple days and they flip that thing over and then they go after it again. When I do a pumpkin that's a paper clay pumpkin, I sculpt the whole thing in one day, one setting, every single time. I always start on the bottom, clay everything up. So when I put the first layer of clay, there's no ridges, no anything. It's just a bulk layer of clay that I put on there, flip it over, smash it down. It gives me a flat bottom, and then I start working on all the rest of the detail from there. And then when I'm doing a pumpkin, a normal pumpkin, once everything dries and the clay is real hard, then I'll mark a circle out on the bottom, and I have to use a Dremel tool to cut the hole out in the bottom to get all the like if I use the balloon or whatever to cut a hole in the bottom, get the balloon pulled out and everything, so you can put, you know, lights and stuff in it and have a nice hollow pumpkin. Or if you did if you used plastic bags or whatever, and you'd pull those holes out, cut a hole in the bottom, and pull all that stuff out. But just layered it all up with clay, and then just flipped the thing over and smashed it down. And what I'll do tonight, when this is done, I'm going to let this set overnight and dry. The sides tomorrow will be dry enough for me to touch, but the bottom will still be really, really wet. So I'll grab like a wire rack that you would use to cool cookies with, and I'll pull this off of here, and I'll set it on top of the wire rack so that the air can get underneath and it'll start drying from underneath. With everything out of the top, where we're getting air inside here and air to the outside and air in the bottom, the clay will dry faster that way. Still going to take a couple days for this to dry completely, but it'll dry out a lot faster than if you had a pumpkin that had all that stuffing inside of it or whatever and you're waiting for it to dry. Even if you still have a balloon inside, that that rubber on that balloon doesn't allow it to breathe. So once you can get your pumpkins cut open, let's say they're dry enough to cut open, and you pull that balloon out, technically that pumpkin hasn't really cured all the way. So if you leave it out for another day or so with it opened up, it'll cure down even more. You'll get a really, really dry pumpkin that's ready for paint and sealer and all that good stuff. And then you shouldn't have mold issues if you get it good and dry. Oh, I'm almost all the way around. Yeehaw. I'll stand up a little bit. Yeah, I do that a lot of times too, Lupin. Once my paper seems firm enough, I'll take certain things out. I know in the past, like when people were doing pumpkins and they were using plastic bags stuffed with newspaper and everything, and then um, they'd pull that stuff out and then they'd clay them, and then they were running into problems with them collapsing with the weight of the clay. And the only reason they collapsed with the weight of the clay is because they didn't have enough. Um, they didn't have enough layers of the strip mache first to hold that up. So when people were doing that back in the day and asking questions about it, a lot of the times when they were on that clay step, it's easier to say, hey, just leave that thing stuffed, and that'll allow you to put that clay on there as thick as you want, and it'll hold up. Makes the drying time slower, but it keeps the pumpkin from failing if they didn't do enough. They didn't do enough layers of the strip mache, if that makes sense. Now I'm just kind of going over all this again. I'm standing up and I'm looking at these ridges from another angle. Just kind of trying to get everything as smooth as I can. I'm probably even going to come in here with my fingers in a minute, nice and wet, and smooth those edges down again. That'll help out. And then I got to work on rounding off all these tops. And so that's kind of what I'm doing right now too, as I'm coming back over this again. I'm trying to push more of this clay to the top so that I have a little more clay at the top to mess with for these top ridges. That way I don't really have to add clay. I mean, I can, but it'll be a lot easier if I can just push this stuff up and use what I have. Let's see. Yeah, it takes some patience, brother, to do this stuff. They do take a long time to burn. I got some pictures of the pumpkin dragon burning, and it took a long time to burn that thing. Yeah, the brown craft paper, it's hard to get it smooth, but it works great. It gives you a good modeling look to it, and it does dry really hard. So Kim, if it does crack on you after it's dried up and you've done it with clay, it's super easy. Like right now, let's say you had some kind of crack like that in it, right? And it all dry and it got dry. All you have to do is get some fresh clay that because you can keep your clay will last for if you keep it in a Ziploc bag, it'll last for a month or so. You can get some fresh clay and just smush some fresh clay right into your crack and then blend it in, and your crack is gone. It's super easy to fix cracks after it's dried up. Even that's not too tough right there. I mean, I just dug into that while it's wet now and just manipulated it around, and look, it's gone. So it's very forgiving. Kids had a snow day today, so today's been kind of off. And this is one of my first days that, like, my patience is low. But I keep looking at this, thinking, yeah, I need some more there, some more here. And when it comes to this, I mean, how smooth or whatever, how close to a natural pumpkin that this looks, all is going to depend on your patience and how much time you're willing to put in to make it look a certain way. And this clay too, when it's all said and done, if you want to sand this stuff down smooth, man, you can get after it and just really sand it down. As far as pumpkins go, though, the way this dries and the texture that it gives a great, basically natural pumpkin kind of look to it when it dries up. You start sanding it real smooth and you'll lose out on some of that detail. I haven't spent much money in any kind of sculpting tools. For this, just because of the fact that you don't sculpt this that much. Like, I bought some sculpting tools and I've tried to use them, but when you're trying to, and we'll see that here in a minute once we start doing the face, because there's paper fibers in here. Once you start trying to dig, you'll grab those paper fibers and pull, and it can become a mess real quick. So now all I'm doing, you guys can see the top. I've got a lot of kind of clay See how this clay is kind of bulked up on the top side right here, right? So I'm just taking that extra clay and I'm playing with it and just kind of rounding this off on top, just because I like the look of the, the hump. I think it looks better than just cut off flat. I like this kind of, that kind of hump, look. I think that makes a big difference on these things. And then when I'm doing this on the top sides too, I'm getting my fingers wet. And it helps to pull the clay around. Vic, it does good. As far as on corpsing, it does good. Hang on just 1 second. But when I do corpsing, I don't use the paper clay. I'll use my mache paste, which is just Type Bond 2 wood glue and water, and then I'll use two different methods when I corpse with this stuff. One is those blue shop towels you get at Walmart or other places, soaked in that because it dries up really, really hard, or I use cotton balls dipped in that, kind of like where everybody uses cotton balls with latex. I'll use it with my mache paste, and it works really well. And when you're using like cotton balls and things like that, what I've noticed is even in the weather, it holds up really well, and it doesn't. I've had some latex masks degrade and fall apart way faster than I have anything that I've corpsed with mache, or actually any of my mache props that I did properly. Like I did that one little short a little while ago on that witch over a foam head. She's all that's all paper clay that I did all her detailing in, and she's like 8 years old, something like that. Her paint hasn't started fading. The face still looks really, really good. She's not cracking out anywhere or anything. The only thing I've had problems with are her hands, but that's because she's fallen over a few times, some rough wind and rainstorms, and she's been through some abuse, man. That old bird, she's been through some stuff, but she's hung in there pretty tight. I like her, but I think I'm going to make some new witches this year that are more on the skeletal side, a little bit darker. All right, so I don't have enough. I finally got to this one right here, and I don't really have enough clay to kind of round off like I'm getting these other tops round off. So I'm going to grab a small little pinch and add it to that one, and probably add it to the next one over here too. And that should give me enough, to smooth these out. And get some rounder tops on them. But that's not looking too bad. Yeah, I mean that's it, dude. I agree with that. Overall, latex is weak in the sun and rain. It's just, when I tell anybody that I make stuff out of mache, I mean, one, it's always, most people don't have the patience, which is fine. I get it. Uh, but there's a lot of people that kind of react like it's kind of an inferior product. It's not really an inferior product. It's just a matter of being able to properly seal it, for your weather. And once you've got that figured out, it'll last a long time. Is it harder to sculpt with? Yes, man, for sure. It's its own animal, but it lasts. If you do it right, it will last a long time. Long time. Not as long as resin, or something made out of fiberglass. But when you start comparing it to props that are latex over foam or whatever, or even some of them old foam pumpkins that lit up, you could buy at Walmart back in the day. Um, I've got mache stuff that's held up way better than that stuff. Way better. What did you do her face over though? Did you do it like on, I can't remember. Did you do her on over foam? Because I mean, if you did, that foam underneath is such a savior. It's gonna last for a long time. Man, Vic, there's no way to mass produce them, bro. I mean, the only way to mass produce them is, and I'm going to play around with it. You can take a mold and make a mold, and then your mold, if you want to mold it, you're going to do clay, and that mold's going to have to be like, it can't be like a latex mold. It's going to have to be a plaster mold because you want that plaster to draw the moisture out of your clay for it to dry. And you'd have to have quite a few of those molds made, and then you would just smash your clay in there and sit back for a couple days and wait and then peel them out. I've done some molds before, but mass producing it would be rough. That's why for me, yeah, would I love to make stuff and sell it, man, absolutely. My goal to try to make money or make ends meet, it all has to do with this YouTube channel and Patreon and stuff like that. If I can find enough people that find value in me teaching them how to do this at home, then maybe I can get enough support through um, different people in different ways, either through Patreon or super chats on this stuff or merch, because I think I'm going to do some t-shirts and stuff. And if that can happen, and I thought about trying to do some books, and if I can make some of that stuff happen, that's my end goal, man. I don't ever see Unhinged producing a bunch of stuff for people to buy as far as props. Maybe some books on how to do this at home. That's my true end goal. I mean, we all are out here trying. Anybody that's a creator on YouTube or anything else, we're all trying to figure out a way to monetize this hobby that we love to do. So that's my end game. I'm not hiding anything from anybody. Heck yeah, do I want to make money from this? Absolutely. Would I love people to give super chats and support? Absolutely. Or join Patreon? Yes. Am I going to force that on anybody right now? Nope. Until it becomes such a burden that I can't do it anymore, then maybe. Okay, you guys can't see. Maybe I need to move this up real quick. So, what I was doing, can you guys see in there? Let me see. Ooh, okay. So, I was going through here. Now I'm kind of pushing the clay down to the inside of this and making it adhere a little bit, and then cleaning up any of the edge. If I have any clay in there that's kind of like wonky looking or something, I'm just pulling that stuff out. Hey, thinking about that mass producing, there may be, I don't know, some kind of factory somewhere in China or something that can mass produce molds. I don't know, dude. I don't know. But I know you can. I have taken clay and putting clay in molds, paper clay, and made that work. It works best though if your mold, like I said, is something that's porous and will suck some of the moisture out. That's right, Keith. Trying to pay for our habits like meth. You're absolutely correct, brother. That's so funny. Oh, chicken eggs, that may be a big time business right now. That may be something even better than uh, selling narcotics or something, man. Eggs are getting through the roof. Through the roof. I buy this like through Walmart or Sam's or whatever. There's always been for years a box of like 60 eggs. Because that was like always my go-to, especially like when we were land on hard times and be super down on our luck on money. Eggs were always cheap, man. That was always you always make some kind of meal out of eggs. So those 60 count eggs used to be $2 and $2.38 or something or whatever. And now that same thing is $20. It's crazy. All right, I'm gonna drop her down a little bit here. Get this out of the way. I'll move the camera again. Give me 1 second. Okay, I'm going to try to do this down here. It's going to be a little more difficult because I'm going to be up against this table, but I'm going to try to get you guys a better view of what I'm doing. Now, overall, this looks fairly decent. I mean, we got some decent little humps here. This stage right here, you can play with this. The longer you play with it, the smoother you can make it. The more detail you want to do with it. I mean, you can spend hours and hours right here on this. But by doing that, to me, I think this makes overall like a real pumpkin look. And when I started doing my pumpkins back in the day, especially when I started the second generation pumpkins, a lot of my ideas for the pumpkins were the pumpkins themselves came alive. They weren't like a carved out jack-o'-lantern. It's like the pumpkin twisted and turned into something. So like the pumpkin demon I did, that's all kind of along those same lines, or like the pumpkin dragon, that type of junk. Um, I like that. And then if you want to you're wanting to create a pumpkin that looks like a real pumpkin that's been carved out, this is perfect. You make a pumpkin with the clay, it looks like an actual pumpkin. You do what we're getting ready to do, and you make your eyes and stuff, and it looks like a carved out pumpkin. So right now, I'm just going to try to I'm going to spin this thing around until I find the spot that says, put face here. And maybe, maybe that part. I got a way I can tag that a little bit. Let's put this right here. So maybe that one. If I would have made these ridges just a little thinner, not quite as thick, I would have had a little more options for creating the face. I kind of like that too. So what do I like better? That. I'm going to do it right here. We're going to do it. This is going to be my face, my area right here. Since I'm not going to carve a nose in this, so this line right here is basically, there's going to be eye on this side and an eye on the other side, and then we'll do the mouth in between here. So this is going to be basically my center point. I'm going to have to turn this like this so I can see it and work on it. As I do these little steps, I'll turn it back around so you can see what I'm doing. Hopefully you'll be able to follow along fairly easily. I don't know, Keith. That's the one I haven't checked Kathy's Etsy shop in forever. I've sold quite a few pumpkins throughout the years. Like, man, I've made a ton of pumpkins, and I don't have any of them anymore. But in order, they can't be sold cheap, is the thing. There's so much time into them. I haven't sold one pumpkin for less than $100. And I've sold a few at $100, and that's for what I consider pretty cheap. I mean, the materials in it isn't much, but there's a whole lot of time involved. So here we go. We're going to do this face, and I'm going to lightly, basically, scribe in some eyes and the mouth, and then all we're going to do is wind up coming in here and just kind of digging this out. If you haven't done it before, it's pretty interesting. It's different than what most have seen or do. But it's also what I do almost all the time now. Okay, so I've got an eye kind of cut in here. Now I'm going to dig this down a little bit deeper. We got to get past all these paper fibers. No, but I'm not using two cameras because it was giving me too much problems, so you should be good to do whatever you want to do.
Oh, no, that's fine. I'm cleaning brushes.
Okay. All right. We dug down in. We're not. Now watch. You're going to see. This is why it's hard. You can't really sculpt with this like you can standard clay, because as I pull, I'm going to try to pull this out and dig this out, and it should, well, watch it be nice and clean, but it will probably pull some fibers with it. We kind of got some fibers right here. See how that pulled that edge right there when I tried to grab that? Now, instead of just sitting here digging and digging at this, I'm going to wet this down. Everything's wet, and I'm just going to scrape inside and scrape stuff up and back out to the outer edges. And that's how I'm going to clean up inside the eye here, just by scraping and pushing that stuff down. Then on the outside, if I push that too far, I could even come back in with my spoon from earlier and manipulate that and push that up, right? And even right here, this looks kind of rough inside here, so I'm going to get that kind of wet. And I'm going to smooth this inside edge down. And just like that, super easy, we have an eye. If I want to give this eye a little more expression, I can kind of lift up on this here, pick that up a little bit more. I can push this one out a little bit more and make that kind of build up some. And puts a little bit of an edge on it here. Once it's dried up, if I wanted this eye to have more expression, I could add a little more clay to this and kind of build that expression up with clay after it's dried. It all depends on how much expression you want to give it. Hey, Charismatic, thank you so much for the super chat. I super appreciate that. Really do. Robin, as far as clean and neat, it's just taking time to get there. So I'm going to do another eye over here, and then we're going to work on the mouth. And the mouth is going to be pretty much, I'm going to do a fairly easy mouth on this guy as well. But we did our big, that's the thing, we did our big layer of mache back there. We're digging down into here. We leave this alone. We're never going to cut this out. Once this all dries, we're just going to paint this black in the background. It'll give us our eyes and our mouth, and then we have a solid bowl. Candy won't fall out, that type of thing. So even if you're going to make this like a big, huge bowl for handing out candy on Halloween, you can use the same concept, do the same thing, do what kind of faces you want into it. You're never going to get past that layer there, so it'll always hold whatever you want to be in it. I mean, if you wanted to get crazy and try to layer it up and really make it waterproof, you could even try to make a punch bowl out of one. Not that I recommend it, but you could give it a try. This part takes a little bit of patience, but I used to do my faces a lot different than this. And then I was just goofing off one night and tried this, and it has become my absolute favorite way to create a face for mache. So, I mean, that's just it too. If you're doing a pumpkin and you're doing, like, any of you guys that sat through my class on cotton ball pumpkins, no way around it. Cotton ball pumpkins take forever. They're a lot of time. They will try your patience, but you can get some pretty cool textures with it. But if you're going to do a pumpkin and just do mache clay over it, once you have an armature done and you've got a good batch of clay made, you can sit down and do your entire sculpt of that pumpkin in one setting and probably pretty well be done. If there's something you see on that you're wanting to try to add a little more details to later that you could do after it dries up, you may add an extra day to your sculpt, but a lot of times you can do it in one day. But they will take, it is going to take quite a while to dry. 3 days at a minimum. The longer you let it dry, the safer you're going to be over time without having any kind of molding issues. It will shrink. So anything that you're doing, if you're doing whatever it is, if you're putting on a face or something and you're wanting to do, if you're doing facial features or whatever, you want to exaggerate that stuff because it will shrink. So a lot of times you want to make things kind of the expressions bigger. Than how you think they should look. Because if you sculpt something in mache clay where you're like, oh, that looks right, or those proportions are, for a normal person, this is correct. When that dries up, it's going to wind up being a lot smaller than it was. So you're safer to over exaggerate everything. Even if you're wanting to do a small thin face, like let me throw this around back here real quick. Hang on, what do we got going on? Where do you find Etsy? Well, Lizzie, I've got an Etsy shop, but I don't have any pumpkins in there. I don't remember Kathy's Etsy shop. I'd have to look it up. She does some cool work. Now, right now, the only thing in my Etsy shop, well, I don't even know, my t-shirts were in there, but I've got to re-verify my bank information or something, so they may have it pulled down, so I need to go fix that. Have I ever done a cauldron? I haven't done a cauldron for a candy bowl, Keith, but well, you saw the Halloween setup go up this year, right? So that big cauldron out there that's in front of those witches, that thing's all mache, dude. And I made that thing like 8 years ago. I can literally stand on top of it and it doesn't fall in. And I weigh close to 300 pounds now. And I didn't put any drains in the bottom of it. So when it rains, that thing fills up with water and it holds water. And it's done it for 8 years. So I've made a big cauldron. I've never made a small one, though. Oh, so let me get back to this. If you're trying to make any kind of mouth or like any kind of like, I don't know, you want to do wrinkles on a face or anything like that, and you want those lines thin. So this line right here that I'm kind of tapping in the back of that, can you see that? So literally, if I let that dry up, it's going to shrink, and this gap's going to shrink, and this gap's going to separate. This will wind up being almost twice as big as it is right now, because as it shrinks, it pulls away. So you just have to kind of keep all that stuff in your head when you're working with paper clay. It's a different beast. It shrinks a lot more than other clays do. And not just because it's cold outside. All right, I'm going to start my mouth. I like big old huge grins, so I'm going to start this thing way up here and then work my way down. And I'm not going to, this is going to be a pretty quick mouth too. We're going to do it easy. And there's not really going to be a lot of digging out on this, on the mouth. And I'm probably going to have to pull it back here quite a ways because I want it to match up over here. And this, here's kind of, I'm not symmetrical, so this part of the pumpkin is further back than that one. So anyway, sometimes that makes things a little tough. I want to reference a pumpkin that I did. Woo! A long time ago. Let's see if you guys can see this. Can you see that? So that's kind of the mouth I'm going to go for on this one. This was a little bitty pumpkin I did a long time ago. I did a makeover on a music box, and I made this little music box pumpkin thing. I broke the music box up so it wouldn't play right and stuff, and it was actually pretty neat. But that mouth is fairly simple, and we're basically going to do the same thing with this. I'm going to just lightly come in here at the moment. I will be coming in this further out and digging this in quite a bit more. Wake up. Oh, this is going to be a pain, but we're going to go here. Here. Man, we almost pushed that down too far in the center. We'll see how this pulls out. So we came down in, up, down. Oops. Okay, well, let's play with this. You can kind of see this trace through here. Now I'm going to dig in deep and try to cut through everything. And this, I'm going to kind of leave alone. But as I get down here, all I'm going to wind up doing is basically grabbing and pulling this down and then pushing up on the top side. And I should be able to create a gap in between there for the teeth, for the mouth. Oh, so Kathy's is gone? That sucks. But mine's still up and it does have a shirt in. Okay, cool. I mean, I get so busy with so much stuff that I don't get around to check. And this, I did all this other stuff for this live feed because I kind of learned how to use the StreamYard deal, and I made some extra stuff for it. And then I realized that I had to pay for an upgraded package, which is fine, and I'm going to do that. But I haven't had the opportunity yet. I don't know if you guys can see this or not. Basically, I'm reaching in right now and just kind of squashing down. And I'm going to come up on this upper side and push up. All right, I got to put this back up. Hang tight with me. I got to put this back on this paint can so I can reach in here and get to this. Let's see if you guys can see this again. Move up. Can you guys see? Think you can see? Let's shape this out and get this how we want it. looks a little rough right now, but we'll fix it. The hardest part to this right here is getting these paper fibers separated. So what I'm really trying to do is I'm grabbing this and I'm trying to pull the whole jawline down, right? I think you guys might be able to see that. I'm sorry the camera angle isn't good. And this is a pretty quick and dirty mouth too. You guys are saying something at the moment. I'm sorry if I don't see it. I'm just really intent on this at the current moment in time. Once I kind of break through this here a little bit, I will turn my attention back over to the chat and see what's going on over there. Oh, come on. This one's fighting me just a little bit. The struggle is real trying to get past the fibers. I think I just got through all of them there. Yeah, I did. Okay. So we can pull that down just a little bit more. I'm trying to be careful. I don't want to pull this open too much because, like I said, as this dries, it's going to pull away, and I may have to come back and sculpt back over this just a little bit so it doesn't pull around too much. But like a lot of my pumpkins, like up in here on these top sides, after the big grin, I like to give them kind of a raised area, a cheek area on that. And what I'll probably do, I'm not going to do it while it's wet. I'll probably wind up after this dries up, go ahead and add a little more clay into this area here and probably on this area here, just to kind of lift those cheeks out a little bit and give it a little more expression. I may put a little more like right above the eyes here, maybe right above the eyes here on that brow ridge to add a little more expression. All depends on how it dries up. When it dries up, if it looks too flat, I'll add some more. If it doesn't look too flat, I'm going to leave it like this. Okay. Okay. Where are we at? Dude, there's Keith. Thanks, Keith. Give me that info. Lizzie Owls. I like the name, Lizzie Owls. Hey, I made an owl once. That looked pretty cool. Okay, says we can see. They run true size, pretty close to true size. I wear a 2X. I haven't had any shrinking problems with them, and I dry them. My wife is one that doesn't dry anything, so it doesn't shrink, and her shirts are good too, but mine don't dry. I haven't had mine shrink down, really. That's funny. Lizzie getting one for Valentine's Day. That's right. Lupin. Oh, awesome! You watched the Al video? Sweet. No. I have. Well, I mean, I've never had, and this one's a little bit thinner. But here, let me push this back because I can get some more with it. So here's an original one. I kind of did it the same way, but see how thin? Look how thin my clay was. I was kind of afraid of clay back in the day because I was told in the early days, everything that I had read and talked about said if you made it too thick, it would crack. And I was worried about that stuff. So nowadays, whatever, I throw it on thick. A lot of times it doesn't crack. Sometimes it does. But even right now, this looks really thick and it's going to shrink down quite a bit. So we're going to lose some of that prominence in there, but it's going to be okay. But no, I mean, I did the same thing. This thing is 6, 7 years old. It hasn't pulled away from the face at all. Yeah, I like I agree with that. I like the smirky grins, not grims. So right now I'm just going to kind of come in here and clean up inside this so it has a decent painting surface. We're going to clean up the insides of these a bit. Yeah, so definitely since I went down to one camera here, I've noticed there hasn't been any problems. So my wife and I were debating whether our internet wasn't fast enough or whether it was this little laptop. And I just don't think this little laptop has enough oomph to do what I want for you guys. So that will be the next true, honest spending purchase for Unhinged is a stronger computer so that we can do multiple camera angles on these live classes. Maybe get some better mics so the sound quality is a little better for you guys. I don't know if you guys can see inside. You probably can't see inside, but all I'm doing right now, let's see, is I'm going in here, and these inside edges were a little kind of rough looking. So I've just been kind of trying to smooth these edges out a little bit. I may pull down a little bit more and open this gap up just a little bit more. But overall, he's looking pretty decent. The cleaner you can get all this stuff right now while it's easy to move around, the better off you're going to be. Because if you got some weird, funky stuff going on in there, the only way to really reach in and clean it out is with a Dremel tool, kind of like a flat shaped bit on the end of it. And then you want to be careful so you don't burn through and put holes in it, and you know. all that good stuff, because we don't want candy falling out of this. Although in my yard, the way the kids swing the candy baskets around when they freak out, half of them lose half their candy anyway. There's still candy out in my front yard. I had the dogs out the other day. They were using the bathroom, and I was just having a look and came across found a Snickers bar and a Reese's. And looping if this did start pulling away, let's say this kind of, as this dries up, like this one right here is kind of pulling back some. It should dry up and attach. If it gave me some issues after it's kind of hard, I would come back in with a paintbrush and lightly put a little bit of glue paste back in here, and then maybe smash down some more paper clay into it to attach it a little bit better. This thing, I don't know what you would really call this, but um, like I went to Michael's, my wife went to Michael's or Hobby Lobby or whatever, and she got like this kit that had like multiple sets of these things, and they're just some kind of sculpting tool kit. Um, this one I use a lot. The normal spoon I use a lot. These I use sometimes for cutting in if I'm trying to get in areas where it's just real sharp points or whatever. But I don't know what I don't know what you call them. Mm-hmm. Palette knife, yeah. Well, wait, though, Keith, isn't this a palette knife? Hang on. Well, where's my stuff at? Isn't that a palette knife? That's a palette knife, isn't it? Boy, look how nasty that is. I need to clean some of my tools up. And sorry, I got quiet again. I just feel like I need to do more, but I don't. Okay, so that's pretty much it for this step. Yeah, you could sit here and refine this all night long. I mean, I could play with it more and more. Like even I don't, you guys can't really see. But here's a nasty little goober spot on the bottom. I'm just gonna dig in here and shape that up a little bit better right now. And that's the one thing I do go back over a lot of times and look at. I look at the bottoms where everything kind of comes together and make sure I'm keeping that pumpkin shape and the way that narrows down at the bottom good, because like this, as this has gotten kind of drying out, the water comes to the bottom and it'll move some of the stuff around. So like all in an hour or so, while this is still kind of pliable too, I may come back and recheck all this on the bottom to make sure it hasn't changed shape on me. Just because it's easier to mess with it now while it wants to move versus like going at it with a sander or something later to keep that shape. If any of that is making sense to you guys. But this is pretty well it, right? For now. We put all our clay on. We sculpted out our face. And like I said, wow, you could sit here for the next 2 or 3 hours really, really, really refining this. I'm not going to go for being the master of this. I'm calling this good for. See you, Keith. Good night, brother. So where are we at? Making the handle holes. So yeah, what I'm going to do more than likely, I generally drill them through after it's dry. Like right now, while it was wet, if you wanted to cheat it, you could take and get yourself a spot, in between, because you want that handle to be really in the middle. So you could go ahead and put an indention in where you thought that handle was going to be at, and just put an indention in. And would dry it with an indention. It'll make it easier for the drill bit to go into. Next week, like maybe I should do that just to show you guys. So if I'm looking at this, man, I didn't make it. Let's do it like this. Okay, so I basically put one little marker spot right there. And another one, see that right there? So when this dries up, that's where I know we're gonna drill our hole for our handle. And then next week when it's all dried up, that's what we're gonna do. We're gonna drill our holes. We'll paint it, drill the holes for the handle, make our handle. Hello. All that, wow, that's pretty glary, huh? Next week, yeah, we will drill the holes. We're going to paint this guy. We're going to do a super fast paint job next week. You guys watched the video I just put out on those pumpkins that I made out of plaster. I like painting that way, but I'm not going to do that paint job because when you sit down and paint like that, that's going to take the paint job itself it can take anywhere from 2 to 3 hours just to paint. So we're going to do a paint job that's fast. It's pretty effective. It looks pretty good. You still get some depth with it, and it's a lot easier to deal with than the other way I paint. So next week, you're going to need paint colors. We're going to base it in black. If you have a white primer, that would be better. But if you just have a white paint, that will work too. So we're going to want black. We're going to want white. We're going to want orange. And you might want some brown so you can darken it down so it's just not bright orange. But that's all based off what you want, the colors you want. And some yellow, because we'll do a little bit of highlighting with some yellow. But basically what we're going to be doing is doing a base black. And then we're going to be doing a dry brush white over that. We'll use a hair dryer or a heat gun to speed up the drying process on the paint. And then we will turn around and make an orange color that we're going to really dilute. We're going to make more of a wash. We'll wash that down over the entire thing. So if that white is primer, the primer will pick up that orange color better. If it's white, it'll pick it up, but the primer picks it up better. So basically, we'll just wash it down, let it dry. If it needs to wash down again, wash it down again, dry it real quick. Maybe hit some highlights with some yellow, and then we're going to make our handle. The handle's pretty easy, other than trying to remember this bulk piece here. My gosh, if I remember right, it's been so long. If I remember right, I believe I started and hot glued one edge, and then I just basically kind of wound around. I may have went back and forth a couple times, but we'll do that to make our handle. We'll put it in, and we're going to have us a finished little pumpkin. We'll finish little trick-or-treat basket. So, yeah, this is quick, easy. Who's sculpting? Here's another question. Who's been working right along with me? And do you have your face done? And if not, don't quit. Finish it out. Put as much or as little detail as you want. And all you guys that are building along throughout this week, as you build the thing, if you got some progress, take some progress pictures, email them to unhingedprops@gmail.com, like some of you have already done. And when this is all said and done, I'm going to make a big old video, and I'm going to show off all the work that you guys have done. So, hey, thanks for joining again tonight. I think it's been pretty good. I think I answered most of you guys' questions. Hopefully. Lizzie, sealing. Totally up to you. I'm not going to seal it. Two ways you can seal it. You can seal it after you're done, even with your paint and everything. Generally, with the trick-or-treat basket, I don't worry about it, because even if a child's going to use it, or you're going to be using the Halloween night and you're carrying that thing around, it's not the same as that thing sitting outside in the rain. So if you're talking about just standing, if you're not weather sealing it, you could do like a gesso over the back of it or end of it when it's done, or even like a flat spray paint over it just to seal in your paint colors and stuff. If you're worried about weather or water, I would use some kind of a spar urethane, but you would just do that after the fact, after everything's dry. Or if you really want to seal them up, when this thing is dry, when that's dry and in the raw like that, you can put a sealer on it, then let that sealer dry, then do all the color paint, and then seal it again. But I wasn't worried about sealing as far as this goes. But I'll see you guys next week. Thanks for being here, and send me some pics. I want to see them. I'm out. And Lizzie says, hey, Jay's wifey. She saw you walk in.
Hi.
She says hi, and we're out.